today we're going to dive in a little deeper on a company named Stellantis. Many of you may not know them, but you know all of their brands. I want to jump to a news story. Basically, it was a press release from them. Stellantis is basically outlined that they're going to give all of their 14 car brands 10 years of funding. And I mean, when you look at this, I think 10 years of funding is a short timeline if you think about it in car years, because a lot of times automobile manufacturers take years to develop, take years to create infrastructure and vertical integration for manufacturing. And then you've got the dealership network. Listen, that's a short reign, even though it sounds like a long time, that's a short reign. But I think the point is I think Stellantis is trying to weed out the vehicle manufacturers that are not doing well, and that's probably a smart thing for them, but it's also a little brutal, but at the same time will most likely move this thing forward. But for the time being, they basically are saying, we love them all, we're not going to kill what you love. They were created from the merger of France's PSA and Italian-American automaker Fiat Chrysler. So its brands include Peugeot, Citroën, Fiat, Chrysler, Jeep, of course, Ram, Maserati, Alfa Romeo, and some others. I want to jump to EV Day because this is a full rundown of all of what they have going, and I think this is going to impress you in some ways, maybe in others, not so much. We'll see. Fourth largest car manufacturer by volume. You can kind of see all these brands. I mean, Fiat, Maserati, some of these are legendary brands. Obviously, the Chrysler Dodge Group, which of course includes Jeep. You've got Ram in there, Peugeot, which is a great European brand, Alfa Romeo, great Italian concept vehicle, and of course Citroën, which is another European brand that's really done well over the years in Europe, but a much smaller in terms of production. They do intend to invest more than $35 billion through 2025 in electrification. That's a big deal for both software development, including both equity investments made in terms of joint ventures. So that means they're essentially looking for other partners that they can go vertically in terms of integration. They also announced that by 2030, their low-emission vehicle, their LEV, will account for over 70% of its sales. So this is kind of in alignment with all of the, I won't call them the prominent manufacturers that have all stated 2030 is the new number. It's interesting because this kind of aligns with the Paris Accord, if you think about it. And that in itself could be some scenarios where these carbon credits could be kind of a big advantage for some of these manufacturers, much like it has been for Tesla. But the fact that they are going to 70% of its sales in Europe and its US will be over 40% in the same time frame by 2030, I think that's actually a little bit low. Because I think we're going to see some pretty heavy adoption here in the United States, and for car makers to not go over the 50% mark. I understand Europe, it's a large percentage of their vehicles right now, meaning electrified vehicles, but it is a little soft for the US. So this is I'm sure they're going to change this over time. You know, they're kind of getting started here, so we'll see. The other thing is the targeting for the total cost of ownership in terms of EVs are essentially going to be equivalent to ICE vehicles, and that's by 2026. So that's an aggressive run in terms of the strategy and also the technology that's going to be needed to essentially make that happen in the sense of getting an ICE car or an EV car to the same price as an ICE vehicle. That in itself, big feat, has not been done yet, even with the release of Ford and their F-150. I think that vehicle is going to be somewhat close, but still a little bit more expensive as you start to add on features. They are going to feature, Stellantis, these 4 different battery electric vehicle platforms. This, I think, is kind of interesting because of the number of brands that they have access to and own. This could be an interesting strategy. And one is going to be the small, then they have a medium version, and then they have the large, and then kind of the platform, the skateboard, what they're calling the frame. What's interesting about that one is they're looking at going with cross-shared components. So as you start to build, the strategy in each one of these brands, having the ability to take something that's going to be kind of that skateboard element and offering that out to all of your brands is going to be a big deal. BYD has talked about this, And we had Taylor Ogan on not too long ago on topic around this, where BYD is going with this direction. And I think with some of these manufacturers, like Stellantis and the auto group they have, this could be a strategy that is really moving forward pretty quickly. So you can kind of see their overall kilowatt rating here, 70 kilowatts for the small, 125 to 180 kilowatts for the medium, 150 to 330 kilowatts for the large, and then of course the frame is probably going to have the ability to do some plug and play. So it's going to be very scalable to kind of cover all these different platforms of vehicle needs. The question is, where are these batteries going to come from? What's that going to look like? And because obviously with this many car brands, you can do group buying. That will give them integration and also leverage buying capability. If you combine them all and look at the manufacturing, they could become maybe number 3 or number 4 in terms of electric vehicles within the decade. So this is one to watch for sure. High level of flexibility within each platform. That's kind of their angle on this, which I like. You know, the small is going to 37 to 82 kilowatts. The STLA medium, 87 to 104. And then the embedded energy, which is the large version, 101 to 118 kilowatts. If you can kind of compare this to, let's say, a Model Y, what I drive is a 70 kilowatt battery pack. So that's kind of gives you a range, or at least an idea of size. My range around 326, reported real range a little under 300. But that's a good, I think that's a good lineup in terms of overall battery strategy. The program of hardware upgrades, they are going to try to do some over-the-air software updates, which will extend the life of the platforms well into the next decade. So that's kudos to Stellantis if they're going that direction. I think Tesla is already moving in this direction pretty heavily. Also, they've announced that there are 2 battery chemistries planned. This is by 2024. Their standard, their standard-based high-energy density option, which is going to be the 600 to 700 range. And then that's a pack configuration. And then one unique module that's going to do the entire group. So basically across all the different vehicles, more affordable, around a little less than 20% kilowatt range difference. So nickel and cobalt free alternatives. That's a good thing. Pack configuration will be a cell to pack approach. So that's kind of the strategy that a lot of manufacturers are going with today. Also, from 2026, the battery types are going to be built to use one unique cell to pack design. This, I think, is going to be interesting because this is going to give them to really kind of go across the different plants and gigafactories in terms of supply chain. And I think that's going to be a huge thing. And as I mentioned, with Stellantis, they're still going to be buying batteries outside because that's going to be a needed thing in terms of supplanting or backhauling, I should say, the need and the amount of batteries they're going to need for manufacturing. So this is a pretty aggressive move, and I think for them to, one, they're going to have so much of it because of the number of brands. So that's going to be kind of interesting here. Let's talk a little bit about their sustainable battery management. This is a full circular strategy they have. They have this whole chart on it, this whole thing around repair, reman, reuse, and recycle. All right, so let's get into the battery costs. They are expected to decrease by more than 40% by 2024, and then another 20% by 2030 compared to 2024. So that's a pretty aggressive plan to get battery costs down. I think Tesla is already down on this direction of really reducing these costs and reducing overall cost of EVs, which is, of course, going to go in line with what Stellantis' overall strategy is in terms of outpacing ICE vehicles at that point based on price. So that's a big one. Let's jump into all the reveals that they have, though, that they've dropped on their EV day. The first one being Ram. Okay, so this is a legendary vehicle. It's a legendary pickup truck here in the United States. For them to drop this in 2024, that's their plan for the launch, I feel like it's too late because you've got Ford with the Lightning, you've got the Cybertruck that's going to be just crawling all over the earth, and then, of course, Rivian, which I think will do well in terms of deliveries, unless they are doing something that is absolutely unbelievable. And I just don't see the innovation cycle in electric vehicles. Because if you think about the Model S or the Model Y or the Model 3, I mean, the Model 3 is a 2018 entry, and it pretty much has not changed much. That's the number one selling EV in the world. outside of China. And you don't see that many developments. Now, could there be something in their strategy or their plan that could position the Dodge Ram in a different way? I just don't see it with the three competitors that essentially are going to take over the truck industry: Lightning, Rivian, and the Cybertruck. And I think those three are going to be the incumbents to pretty much run the show. All right, let's get into Opel. This is an interesting small German automaker. They're going to bring back the Manta. I don't know if many of you Manta, maybe there's a whole Manta group out there on YouTube, but it's going to be called the Manta-e, and it'll happen by the middle of the decade, so around 2025 or so. They're going to enter a series production by hopefully in maybe 22, 23. The difference is it's not going to be a two-door coupe as the original course. So that's interesting, but I think the crossover strategy is one that is kind of addressing a lot of where the trends are, because back when the Manta was created, I think that was in the mid-60s or mid-70s, it was a different era. It was a different era of how vehicles were run, because now crossovers are cool, which are kind of the family vehicle. Back in those eras, it was the old station wagons. I remember Mom had one, and it was the worst car you could ever have. But anyway, the point is I think they're going in a direction that is in alignment with a lot of the vehicles, whether you look at what's happening with Hyundai or you look at Tesla, obviously with the Model Y, and even look at NIO's production. And I love BYD and the Tang. It's, there's so many great vehicles that kind of go in this SUV/crossover space that is going to be a little bit crowded. This, I think, though, is going to be one of those brands that unfortunately may not make it out of Stellantis bullpen. But we will see. It's going to be an interesting one. I like the look of this vehicle anyway. If anything, it does look very futuristic. And the main thing I think with this is, as we see more and more design changes and themes and developments, I think design is going to be a big factor in the future. Now, that is where I would say the Germans are very good. So if this does pull out of a nosedive, it will be because of design. Let's get into Chrysler. This is a luxury brand, now has 3 models on sale in North America, which 2 of which are minivans. So you've got the Luxury EV concept based on the group's large platform, basically the battery platform we're talking about. It's shaped like a crossover, as it's got a super high-tech interior. Best case scenario, driving range, they're aiming at 500 miles. When I say best case scenario, I'm sorry, I just don't know that we're going to see a lot of 500-mile vehicles out there. With Tesla feels like they've abandoned the 500-mile vehicle, at least in the passenger vehicle. It may happen in the Cybertruck. But for them to kind of move away from it until the battery tech is there, I know Tesla is waiting on that 4680, but even with that, it's going to be in these high, very expensive vehicles, not in these iron phosphate battery vehicles, which are going to be the more affordable vehicles that are essentially going to kind of roam the land. It is going to be, I think design-wise, this is a very good-looking vehicle. I like it has a lot of that Ford Mach-E feel to me. It has that long, sloping, slanted lines that have kind of with a little bit of an aggressive front. And I like it. I think it's a good look. The interior is absolutely stunning. If this is a real interior, I think they've got something here. This is one of those things, and I'm continuously amazed at the amount of advancements that are happening in automotive interiors. And I think, thank you, Tesla, because they have pushed the envelope in innovation around interior design, and mainly what people want. Now I think car manufacturers understand people are looking for a much more modernized interior, many more creature comforts. I like the fact that we've got all these beautiful screens, and that's in the vehicle because it does create a completely different environment. All of this, of course, is eventually setting up for fully autonomous. I do like this whole back seat approach in this vehicle as well. Love the back screens. I think we need more of those right now. I wish those were available in the Teslas and the Model Y, but we'll see it in the Model S and the Model X over there. All right, so let's jump to Dodge. E-Muscle, that's what it's going to be called versus just electric vehicles. Speculation is the 69 Charger. We'll see about that. The Charger was it was an icon in terms of road racing. Do you know, fun fact here, I owned a Dodge Charger. It was an absolute piece, well, we won't go there, but it was bad. at the time. And it was a vintage car, and it had been restored. But, you know, listen, maybe Dodge has got some tricks up their sleeves, because you cannot tell what this vehicle looks like at all in this reveal. So hopefully it's going to be absolutely beautiful, but it must not be beautiful enough yet to completely give us a reveal. Hopefully they're going to do that very soon. I'm looking forward to it. Let's go into Jeep. This is a love affair I've had with Jeep all my life, and I love the fact that they're going after the Wrangler. This is going to be called the Wrangler 4xe. It plans to offer several upcoming models, which is, if you know the Wrangler lineup, there's a whole, whether it's the Rubicon series or you get into all the different custom trim levels. I like this. The Grand Cherokee is also going to be introduced, and the Wagoneer 4xe all be joining the plug-in hybrid Wrangler, which I think is at least a good step in the right direction, even though I would prefer that this had been fully electric. The brand didn't provide details about the upcoming Jeep trims. I imagine they're going to stay with the same. I can't imagine they would go away from Rubicon and all those trim levels. The Sahara, I mean, there's so many great trim levels in these Jeeps that have been around for years. And in reality, I think they're great for resale, which is a big thing. So Jeep did show off upcoming special features, such as autonomous off-road tech. Why would you want autonomy off-road tech? Maybe when you're doing some really technical ascents, sometimes those get pretty dangerous when you go over big rocks, things like that. They also revealed a drone pairing feature. I think that's cool. A little bit, a little bit tchotchke, but it's a cool feature. Peer-to-peer charging, that I like. Biometric recognition, I think we need to see more of that in moving into this, and remote vehicle tracking, which I think is going to be kind of fun and cool. But again, limited use cases for that. It is going to have kind of this whole flat seat stargazing. So I think they need a lot more of this built into these kinds of vehicles in terms of using them for, kind of camp units. And, off-roading and overlanding is there's a whole huge theme about it. I hate to keep jumping to Tesla, but you should check out I1 Tesla's. He took a Model Y and basically converted that vehicle completely into an off-road overlander. So, but my point is this is a thing. It's a big community out there, and Jeep is usually the one that is leading the pack in this. So I would really like to see what they come up with in terms of all these cool overlanding, features. Because listen, Rivian's done a great job with really going in this direction. I think Rivian and Jeep might be on a collision course here. In terms of where they're going with their vehicles, even though Jeep has a little bit different style. But I think the Rivian, when you look at both the SUV and the pickup, this is going to be a head-to-head. They are saying by 2025, they're going to have 70% all sales will be electrified. Kudos to Jeep on that one. That tells me they're a little further ahead, and at least their management team is thinking in that direction. Let's move over to Fiat. This one is going to be very interesting. This is called the Centoventi concept. This is a Panda style. So before you kind of judge on this one, look at the design of the interior. It's designed to be reconfigured. So you're going to have both interior bins and other equipment, things that are really designed for plug and play. So it's going to also move over to the doors itself. You can kind of change and rearrange the pocket designs on these. So very modular. I love that. And they're also extending that over to the battery that could be expanded from a 62-mile range all the way up to 310. So maybe it's just like Legos. You just keep, connecting them together. The layout that will be up to 3 additional battery modules that will be added by a dealership. So that's gonna be kind of a cool function. I actually like this idea of doing modular additions, because why would you, if you didn't have a big commute and you were in a small city, why would you need to that's good for the environment. You don't need that big of a battery pack. So this is a perfect solution. This should be something that other manufacturers are doing. This is a good one. I like that. The additional battery for mounting is under the seat, can also be available. I feel like this is kind of like the gas tank thing. When you mounted that to your vehicle, an extra gas tank. Imagine, you get out in my car, I'm down the road, I'm going out on a trip this week, and I'm sure going to have range anxiety, and I'm going to be wondering, wait a minute, what if I had an extra 62 miles of range that I could just pop in and take me over? That would be kind of cool. I like that. It can be disconnected and put on a charge directly in the user's home or garage, just like the battery of these modern e-bikes. So I like this one. The design is interesting, and it's definitely one that I think could be a winner. And if you look at the styling cue of this, does this look like the Hyundai or the Soul? I don't know. It has a lot of similarities to it, but I do like the modernization of it. It's a cool look. The interior, this one is where it gets a little bit different than anything I've seen. If that Panda actually shows up in the production car, man, this is going to go head to head with the VW Bug. And I think, because that's those personalization aspects that I think the VW Beetle and Bug bring to consumers, and this kind of vehicle could be the one that could definitely do it. All right, lots happening from Stellantis. As you can see, they are dropping a whole lineup of electric vehicles. I do like the aggressiveness in some of these, especially with Jeep. I think that's going in the right direction. Jeep is an iconic brand. I'm a little disappointed in Ram being so slow to the game for pickup trucks. And I think some of these other small players may win and get kind of whether it's Opel or Fiat, I think they could end up with some very interesting, much like their predecessors were these very niche markets. So this is I think this is a good showing for Stellantis. It's definitely not the aggressive showing that I've seen from places like Ford and places like Tesla or BYD or NIO, or you get into the Chinese manufacturers. But for what's happening in Europe, I think they have a good strategy. I'm curious to see the kind of team they start to build around this, because my inkling here is they could be building some cross-management teams that could really help leverage up in all these different designs. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see some mergers in both technology and also in some of the brandscape that could be lining up for this company in the future. It's going to be fun to watch. The beautiful thing here for all of you, if you're an EV owner, or maybe you're just coming to our channel to learn more about electric vehicles, autonomy, robotics, all those kind of things, it's here. It's finally here. We are at a point where technology has actually intersected with the path of society, and it is really happening thanks to guys like Elon and many others out there. So kudos to everyone that's out there. If you're listening over on the podcast, make sure and give us some stars. That's a way for us to understand what you like, what you don't like. And also you can give us a rating over there. It's, a review. It's a great way to do comments and give us feedback, different than over here on YouTube. Here on YouTube, put the comments down below. Let me know which one of these vehicles you think are going to make it out, and tell me about the Dodge. That's the one I'm most interested in, because I think the Dodge pickup truck has some potential life. If you have an idea for a show, shoot us that to producer@reverendnetworks.com. Hit me up on Twitter @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.